For more than a decade, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now.
Anything the Leafs can do, the Jets can do better. The Jets can do anything better than the Leafs. Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. With apologies to Ethel Merman and Ray Middleton, and I won't keep singing. That is sort of the mantra and the thought process and the vibe that needs to be taken as Game 6 between the Jets and the Dallas Stars is about 10 hours away from now. Gentlemen, good morning to you both. 3-2 is the series. The Jets need a win on the road for the first time these playoffs. It's a big day in Winnipeg. We all know that.
Sorry, I'm just currently Googling who Ethel Merman is. I've heard the name before, but I forgot who that was. But I guess she was a pretty famous actress back in the day.
Yeah.
Singer.
She was an actress. She was a Broadway star. Yes, things of that nature. I did not expect, to be perfectly honest, that you would have that reference immediately available on the top of your fingertips. I for whatever reason, literally that intro came to me about 10 seconds before we started this morning. So I don't know why, but there you go. Anyways.
Well, no, it makes sense, Drew. You went to elementary school with Ethel Merman. It makes sense that you would reference her.
Ethel Merman, born in 1908, just for clarity's sake.
Hey, I have a broad range of talents. If it's not just the 1960 World Series stats, it's Ethel Merman stats as well.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll get away from Ethel Merman here, boys, for a second. Although I would like to explore her career in my spare time. But we have a huge Jets game tonight in Dallas, obviously, Game 6. Drew, you mentioned the Toronto Maple Leafs beating the Florida Panthers. They've extended the series to 7. So it is possible. And I think there's a lot of Jets fans out there that are believing guys after the way they played in Game 5. And let's not forget, in Game 4, the Jets outplayed the Stars, I would argue, for the majority of that game. And they could have easily had that win, and the series could have been tied going back to Winnipeg as opposed to the Jets being down 3-1. So I think that the Jets are in a good position. Obviously, guys, they need to be better on the road. That's been the narrative, not just this year, but in previous years. Like we talked about it, going back to that series in the first round against Vegas, no wins on the road. No wins on the road last year versus Colorado. So for me, Dave and Drew, this is an opportunity for the Jets to break that narrative. It's time for them to win on the road, bringing this game back to Game 7. I think you guys would agree. This Game 7 is pretty much, this Game 6 is pretty much a Game 7, because if the Jets come back for Game 7 here, we know how good they've been in front of the Canada Life Center crowd, right? So you can't really underscore, Dave, how monumentally huge this game is tonight.
We also know how good Pete DeBoer has been in Game 7, the Dallas Stars coach, who's 9-0 in Game 7. So
they can break that narrative as well, Dave.
Yeah, that's what Scott Arniel's message was yesterday to us when we spoke to him at the airport before they took off for Dallas, was that streaks start and streaks end. And they've had some good winning streaks and not very many losing streaks. But this is clearly a losing streak that if they want their season to continue, which is what Mark Scheifele said to us yesterday as well, they're going to have to break this current road losing streak. I don't focus on anything prior to this season, because this season's enough. Not winning, once in St. Louis and not winning once in Dallas.
We're already 100 games deep, right, Dave?
Yeah, this will be 101. But the fact of the matter is that, forgetting about, I don't really care what happened last year against Colorado. I don't care what happened the year before that in Vegas. The only thing you're going to really want to focus on is, can this team get over this hump? And the reality is, as he pointed out, is that they've got a blueprint. They've got the fact that they played a really good Game 4 in Dallas. And obviously they weren't on the winning end of it. And they're going to need Connor Hellebuyck to be Connor Hellebuyck. The way he played in Game 5, the way the team played in Game 5. Now, you're not going to have the benefit of last change, and Pete DeBoer is going to do whatever he can, because he's a hell of a good coach, to get the matchups that he wants, not the matchups that Scott Arniel wants, which is why This is where the Drewism is going to come into full force and effect. The attention to the details are going to be so significant for the Jets, because this is not where you can afford to have a puck flipped in casually and not get it in deep for a line change, resulting in a rush chance against and a goal. This is where you have to, just pay, like I said, whether it's the power play having the abilities or the penalty kill. I mean, you got to be clean with your attempts, right? You don't want to give up, take casual stick infractions where you're not moving your feet. So, and the other question also, and I listened, I posted Pete DeBoer's media availability yesterday on the website for anyone who wanted to hear it, because he was asked about whether he would go 12-6. And we can ask Mike Heika about that when he comes up in a little bit. But his thought essentially was, is Miro Heiskanen ready to play 20, 25 minutes? Because if he's not, we're not going to put him in that position. So we'll know a little bit more about the health of Miro Heiskanen, who's just obviously coming back and played a couple games after missing 4 months or whatever it was since his injury in late January.
I wouldn't be surprised, Dave. Sorry to cut in here. I wouldn't be surprised if they go 12-6, because Heiskanen looked a lot more comfortable in game 2 in game 5 than he did in game 4, I think.
Well, how about the fact that Jets basically played 12-5? I mean, Hayden Fleury, in game 5 only played 8 minutes. So, I mean, the Jets really, sheltered him significantly, something you can do on home ice. Now the Jets don't have that availability to them, given that they're on the road. So it's going to be, I'm curious. I don't expect, I wouldn't be shocked if there's some sort of lineup change to the Winnipeg Jets. I don't know if that means Colin Miller comes in, because we've seen Luke Shen be a lot better at home than on the road. I mean, there's a lot of, I think, moving pieces, and the matchup in the chess game here is, I think, going to be a key determining factor in tonight's game. To your point there, guys, in that, obviously the Jets have struggled on the road. We know that. But the matchups have been so important in this series. The Jets have succeeded when Adam Lowry has been up against Miro Heiskanen. Against Mikko Rantanen. Their names are too similar. Can they please at least change their names a little bit so I stop getting confused? Dallas has been successful when they've been able to get Rantanen up against Scheifele and away from Lowry. The game within the game is really going to be, I think, a fascinating aspect of tonight's contest. You're on mute, Ezzy.
Here, I wouldn't be surprised. Well, I'm trying to post comments and then I mute myself because I don't want anyone to hear my heavy breathing. So that's why I usually mute myself. But I apologize.
That heavy breathing while you're sitting is something we'll probably explore off air a little bit later on.
Yeah, well, I've already been offered Ozempic by my family doctor. That's a true story. But until it's covered, I'm not going to be taking Ozempic. You know what? Look, I'm happy with the way I am. I embrace who I am. Okay, I don't shy away. There's more. What
are we going to start calling him Small Daddy as opposed to Big Daddy? I mean, that makes no sense.
Yeah, exactly. Or even like Medium Daddy. Like that wouldn't work.
Well, that'd be creepy, actually.
Yeah, look, there's more of me to love, right, Drew?
That's right.
So,
loose skin daddy is just gross.
yeah, exactly. And I'm not. By the way, just as an aside, I don't really want to inject I'm not a big fan of needles, and I don't even know if it's a needle that you inject yourself. Anyways, I'm not.
Did the Ozempic talk begin because I posted a picture of when Jamie Benn was getting the gate out of Winnipeg because he got that punch to Mark Scheifele's face, resulting in a $5,000 fine. We should mention that. But one of the board ads that Colby got a photo of was as Ben is going out the gate was Ozempic. So I'm wondering if maybe that's somewhere in your subconscious there, Ezzy.
In the deep recesses of your mind, as about the deep recesses of your belly.
Yeah, well, exactly. I'm pretty sure Scheifele wouldn't mind if Jamie Benn was injected with a bunch of Ozempic and ballooned up and wasn't able to play in Game 6. But that's another story. I mean,
I think actually it's a benefit as if Jamie Benn does keep playing because he's not really doing much.
Yeah, I mean, like he's obviously towards the end of his career, guys. But yeah, he has not been. Look, put it this way: if this was 5 or 6 years ago, Jamie Benn would be one of the most impactful players on the ice, and he just isn't anymore. I mean, we know who the Stars are led by, and Drew just mentioned it's Mikko Rantanen, Roope Hintz, and Mikael Granlund's team at this point. I'd obviously throw in Matt Duchene and Jason Robertson, but Jamie Benn he's more of a secondary scorer for them now, and he's not even really contributing. I think he's only got like 3 points or something in the playoffs so far. But that's one thing. Just as an aside here, just pivoting. it'll be interesting to see if there's any spillover from that, guys, because I think a huge part of the Jets game, and I realize, some people don't want to talk about this, but a big part of the game in Game 5 to me was how they played physically, right? We talked about the Jets dominated the hits. It was like 55-34 or something like that. And to me, that's indicative of how they're forechecking and how they're putting pressure on the Stars. And we've talked about this all season long. I mean, hockey's a game. It's a 3-zone game. And usually if the Jets are playing the right way in all 3 zones and they're forechecking with speed and forechecking with pressure, and then we're going to see what we saw in games 2 and 5 in Winnipeg, where the Stars really, they can't handle it and they're just dumping the puck into the neutral zone. The favorite question that Peter DeBoer likes to be asked by Sean Reynolds. But I mean,
just flip the puck out.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the Jets have to emulate what they did in Winnipeg in Game 5. And it's easier said than done because, like Drew said, and we had a question earlier. I think it was Renee. She might be.
I put it the answer.
So, I mean, maybe you've already talked about it, but just for everybody, if we have some new hockey fans, last change means that after the whistle, the Dallas Stars have the ability. They're the last team to put their players on the ice. So the Jets have to put their players on the ice first. And that's something that a home ice team gets that advantage. So that just for everybody which means it's a factor upon when you change on a whistle. If you're changing on the fly, obviously, then there's that rule doesn't apply. You change whenever you want. So it's only upon the whistle. You mentioned Jamie Benn though, which brings me to the player from the Winnipeg Jets that I think needs to be the who is going to be, maybe not the player that determines if this is a victory or not for the Winnipeg Jets tonight, but that's Mark Scheifele. So Jamie Benn obviously sucker punches Mark Scheifele in the face at the end of Game 5. Scheifele's quote yesterday was, "What? My face hurts." I think I'm paraphrasing a little bit there, Dave.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, to me, Mark Scheifele, given the fact, those matchups, given the fact that Pete DeBoer wants Rantanen up against Scheifele, and they've had success against Scheifele, and that Scheifele, frankly, hasn't had the best series, through the first 4 games. He was far better in Game 5, of course. But to me, Mark Scheifele is the one who's going to sort of pull the Winnipeg Jets and lead the Winnipeg Jets forwards, especially to a victory tonight. If that comes to fruition, it's going to be because of the impact of Mark Scheifele. I think back to 17-18 and, how important and how much of a driver and how dominant
against Nashville. What did he
was
have?
Against Nashville.
Seven goals, Dave, something like that against Nashville.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How dominant he was in that series. 7 goals, wasn't something like 14 points, or it was a wild number. I don't remember exactly what it was, but Mark Scheifele was the best forward for the Winnipeg Jets in that series, and quite possibly the best player on the ice in that series. Tonight, Mark Scheifele needs to be the best player on the ice for the I think on either team, and that is going to, if he could do that, then I think the Jets have a chance to send it back home for Game 7 on Monday evening.
Okay, I mean that's I agree that Mark Scheifele has to be what he did in Game 5. He was noticeable. He was present, but I mean, again, I think the Jets win and lose as a team, so I'm not prepared to just embrace this idea that he has to elevate his game and get a hat trick and play defensively like he's like a Selke winner. To me, he just has to do what he's been. Again, I agree, especially on the road, Drew. He has not been to the same level as like most of the Jets, like he's been at home. I will just say one thing though. There's a narrative that, hockey players, $5,000 isn't a lot to them. Hockey players don't like to pay a nickel for anything. If it's going to be free, they don't pay for their cars. They don't pay for anything. Trust me. Hockey players, remember back in the day, you used to get a $50 gift card for coming on to do like a hit on 1290, I think. And I was like, what does a hockey player need a gift card for the keg or something like that? And then I was like, wait a second. I know exactly why, because they'll use it. It's not as if they are, trust me, $5,000 might not seems like a lot.
Still $5,000. Like obviously, if you compare, I think Jamie Benn makes $9 million a year or something like that.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, $5,000 for him is a little bit less than for me, who makes $5 million a year, right? But the reality is, it's still $5,000. Right?
I'm just saying, yeah, I agree, Ezzy.
It should be more than that. I mean, like it's funny. Like they always talk about, like next time they negotiate the collective bargaining agreement, are they going to raise that? Like, I don't know. I don't think that's the biggest issue when you're in a multi-billion-dollar industry. I don't think that's their main concern, right?
Yeah. So, but anyways, getting back to Drew's point, I honestly, I just tend to not focus on this idea that it needs to be one player who's going to step up and assume the mantle of the guy. I mean, look, it could totally work out that way. It could be someone from Dallas, it could be someone from Winnipeg, and great. That's fantastic. But this Jets team has won as a team collectively throughout the course of the year. So I don't suddenly anticipate, because that would be a change in their sort of style. And again, to me, that gets away from this idea that you win and lose because guys stay within the structure of what the team calls for. And it's not it's not hero ball. It's not the NBA where you can have one guy come in and control the whole game.
Shout out to the Sea Bears for winning their season opener yesterday, by the way.
Correct. As I was leaving on Friday night, they were setting up the Sea Bears court. And congrats to the Sea Bears. Obviously did a nice memorial to Chad Posthumus, who's the Winnipegger who lost his life and had played for the Sea Bears for the first 2 years. And they also set a record. I think they had over 10,000. I think Connor was at the game, and he said there was over 10,000. They opened up the upper bowl. So Sea Bears basketball is quickly becoming a big thing. I went to my first game last year. It was a lot of fun. Sat courtside, hashtag no big deal. But the fact of the matter is
Dave on Celebrity Row at Madison Square Garden.
Dave was beside Jack Nicholson and Charlize Theron. And
no, absolutely. I had my feet on the court like Larry David. It was great.
You tripped Shaq?
I did. Well, the Sea Bears version of Shaq. But the fact of the matter is, congrats to them. I'd obviously love to see things in Winnipeg have success. So good on that. And then, but no, getting back to the point, I really don't. I'm not trying to be a contrarian here, Drew, but I don't anticipate that it needs to be that way just because it hasn't been that way all year long. You're going to need the whole team to step up. You need Adam Lowry to be the best defensive player on the ice. You need Connor Hellebuck to outduel Jake Ottinger. You need Mark Scheifele and his line to do what they've been doing. And you need the depth of scoring, which we got a little bit of we got to see a little bit of in the last game, even though obviously it came at 5-on-4 when Vlad Domestikov scored a power play goal. So that to me is what I think is the most important thing.
This is an interesting comment from Brian. You saw on the bench, or Dave, I don't know if you were able to see it from the rink in Game 5. Scheifele was furious.
Yeah.
So much so that Morgan Barron was trying to calm him down.
Yeah.
And then Scott Arniel came over and had to calm him down. So, I say that from my opinion, and Dave, I totally respect your take, and it's logical and makes sense what you said there.
Drew's like, I respect your opinion, but my opinion's better.
But he does need to be able to harness that anger, because I'm sure. You, Dave, you were there talking to him yesterday. I'm sure he wasn't happy about getting punched in the face 24 hours later. 48 hours later, I'm sure he's not going to be any less. I'm sure he's not going to be any less forgiving of Jamie Benn for it. But it has to manifest itself in the right way on the ice tonight. It has to be Scheifele controlled aggression, channeling that energy to the Jets' positive, as opposed to letting it overwhelm him. Not that he was out of control on the bench, but you don't often see a player, a teammate, and the head coach have to come over and sort of tell him to take a breath and relax and put it behind him, like they had to do in Game 5. Now, the game was over at that point. It was long over. The Jets were going to win. But it's still something that I remember from the broadcast, like, whoa, this is a man who is unhappy right now. What is that? What's going to be the result of that, moving forward in this series in Game 6 tonight? And then, of course, if there's a Game 7 on Monday.
So what you're saying is don't make him bleed his own blood.
There you go. You made me bleed my own blood. Don't make him do that at that point in time. But the Jets, they want Mark Scheifele to have a burr in his saddle. They want Adam Lowry to have a burr in his saddle. The Jets know that if you bring it back for a 7th game, anything can happen. It's a toss-up at that point in time, win or lose. But it requires winning tonight in Dallas. And I'm certain, you're there, Dave, all the time. I'm certain that they're tired of hearing about the losing streak on the road. And the only time that they'll be done hearing about it is by winning. It's incumbent on them. They're the ones who control the removal of that narrative. They're the ones who control the removal of that discussion point. So it's incumbent on them tonight in Dallas to do what they need to do. And you heard I thought it was interesting. You heard Matt Duchene after Game 5 basically say, no surprise, but basically say, look, we don't want to come back to Winnipeg for Game 7. It's a long flight.
They might have to.
That's a damn good team that we play against on home ice. They know, Dallas does know how important it is that this not get back in front of the whiteout. And I know that, sometimes it's hyperbole and sometimes it's low-hanging fruit to discuss the impact of a crowd on a series. When the opposition is talking about it, I think it leaves a little more credence to it. It's one thing for the Jets players and Scott Arniel to say, oh, yeah, our home crowd, they're so great. Of course. What else are they going to say? It's another thing when the opposition talks about the difficulty in playing in that kind of road environment.
The only thing I would add quickly is that Pete DeBoer has mentioned it now twice in his post-game media availability, but also yet last night or yesterday, which I posted on the website, illegalcurve.com, #no big deal, that they've got to...
Sorry, that's two no big deal so far.
I know, I realized as I was saying it, but I was already invested.
No big deal, Dave, drinking game, drink.
But anyways, no, I just think, by the way, shout out, speaking of drinking, Karen Mitchell is watching us on her TV and tagged us on Instagram with a big Winnipeg Jets cup saying "Go Jets Go," watching the Illegal Curve show. So shout out to Karen watching us on television.
And she's drinking alcohol at 9:15
No,
in the morning.
I presume it's a coffee, but we appreciate everyone watching us in whatever format you choose to watch, as long as you smash that like button. But the point I'm trying to make is that Pete DeBoer now has twice acknowledged this idea that they're coming back to Winnipeg. Not that they want to, obviously, as Drew would say, but that it is a distinct reality in their mind. It's interesting, actually, I have to tell you, because most teams don't allow that sort of, I'm not saying doubt, but just kind of even to allow that sort of talk filter into their lexicon while they're focused on Game 6 and the idea that, they're going to end it in Dallas. So that to me is an interesting sort of insight, I think, into, and again, I'm not saying suddenly that they have this losing mentality, but it's unusual. It's something that I took note of having listened to tens of thousands of interviews and minutes of interviews over the years. That I just noticed from Pete DeBoer is just this idea that this could very well be coming back for a Game 7. Now, I mean, maybe he's trying to lull the Jets into a false sense of security, and then he's going to hit him with something big tonight. But I just thought it was an interesting comment made by the Dallas Stars coach twice.
Who's got the most pressure on them tonight? Individually or as a team? To start with the team question. And Mike Heika of the Dallas Stars is going to join us at the bottom of the hour. We'll talk about Game 6 from his perspective. Paul Edmonds is going to join us in hour number 2 as well. So we are covering the Jets and the Stars Game 6, of course, in its entirety from all angles and all perspectives. So that's what's ahead this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. But let me ask you that, which team has the more pressure on them entering tonight's Game 6? The Jets, who obviously want to continue their series, or the Dallas Stars, who want to win it on home ice?
I think you could look at it two ways, right? I mean, there's obviously pressure on both teams in the sense that there's this trip to the Western Conference Finals on the board, right? But Dallas, there's pressure on them because they don't want to go back to Winnipeg, where the Jets have only lost one game so far in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But there's also pressure on the Jets, who are not only trying to win Game 6 and bring it back home for Game 7, but they're trying to break the narrative that we just talked about, that goes back to the series against the Vegas Golden Knights, where they haven't won a game on the road since the bubble year, right? Against the
they won Game 1 in Vegas.
Oh, sorry, they won Game 1 in Vegas.
Yeah,
did they? Okay, yeah. That's right. Yeah, so they haven't won
since then.
So why did I think that they lost every single game that year? Obviously, I forgot.
Yeah. No, they lost in 5. They won Game 1 in Vegas. They played well in Game 2 until about the halfway mark of the game. Then Vegas elevated, and then the Jets collapsed for the remainder of the series.
So you're talking about, 9 games in a row now on the road, 10 games in a row now on the road that they've lost. So the point is that, this is not just a narrative that they're trying to break for this year. So there's pressure on the Jets for sure. So it's hard for me to say. I mean, there's obviously, I think, maybe that added pressure on the Jets because, they're trying to get to the Western Conference Final for the first time, whereas the Dallas Stars have been in the Western Conference Final the previous 2 years. The Jets have the President's Trophy, so the expectations are a little bit higher. But
the Jets haven't been to the conference final, of course, since 17-18, the series against Nashville, the Game 7 win in Nashville.
Right. So, I mean, this is going to be a high-stakes game, and I'm expecting it to be very tight. At least for the first couple periods, I'm expecting to be tight. Let's not forget, guys, it wasn't until there was that 5-on-3 power play in Game 5 that game started to open up. It was pretty even up until that point. It was a 1-goal game, right? So
the Jets had controlled the flow of the play, but it was a 1-goal game. It was 1-0 at that point, even though the Jets had been the better of the two teams. Jake Ottinger had been unbelievable. And when it's a 1-0 game, I mean, we all know this, that one bad fluke shot, one defensive breakdown, one whatever, all of a sudden can tie up a game, and a team like the Dallas Stars would have been equal to the Jets on the scoreboard, despite not being equal to the Jets in terms of flow of play.
Right. And just wanted to say one more thing, Drew, here before we go to break. We talked about there's a lot of pressure on the Jets because they haven't won a game on the road since the game one against Vegas. But it's also, I think, a little bit of added pressure on Dallas. They lost they were shut out twice in Winnipeg. And I realize they're back at home. But, in that sense, I think the Dallas Stars know that they've got to be, at their best. We always talk about it from the Jets' perspective, but you go back to the regular season where the Jets won 3 of 4 games. Like the Dallas Stars, at this point, guys, they're very aware of how good the Jets are. It's not like this is a secret and they're just discovering this, after Game 5 that the Jets are a really good team. So there's a lot of pressure on Dallas as well. They don't want to have to go back to Winnipeg, and that's why it goes back to what I said. In many ways, Game 6 is Game 7. If the Jets win Game 6, I mean, they're clearly in the driver's seat and they have all the momentum. So I think in that sense, there is added pressure on Dallas, but I think there's a lot of pressure in any Game 6 in a Stanley Cup series, or Game 7 for that matter. There's a lot of pressure, but I mean, I think this is going to be a very good game, and I think we're going to have to see who ends up just playing their game better and who executes better. Who's better? Who wins that special teams battle? Who wins the goaltending battle? Who's better at 5-on-5? Well, we know the Jets were much better than Dallas in all of those areas in Game 5. Now they have to do it on the road, which is obviously a tall task because they haven't been able to do it throughout these playoffs.
Drew, the only thing I'm going to add quickly, because I know we're going to go to break, is I think there's a lot of pressure on the Jets in the sense that I think they want to score that first goal. Scott Arniel talked about the importance of getting that first goal to kind of get a little bit of momentum within the game. And I think that, to me, is going to be the pressure. But we saw it in the Toronto and Florida game. I watched it yesterday for the most part. And, 0-0 into the first period. So, I mean, as long as it's tight.
To the third period.
Well, but I'm saying as long as the Jets can kind of maintain that sort of level, I think it's important. So I think you got to get to that first intermission tied in some capacity. And then I think it's like, obviously if you're up 3-0, it's way better, but I'm just saying that, but I just think that it's more likely that, if you get that first goal, it is going to give this Jet team a ton of confidence. I don't think they're going to be tight. I think there's just going to be that desire not to make that mistake that leads to a goal. So you got to watch for that. And I think Dallas is going to be all over them to start. They're going to have that crowd. There's going to be a lot of excitement. So that, to me, is what I'm watching for in terms of pressure, is just that which team gets the first goal. Because I think then the pressure becomes transfers to the other team.
Day-long coverage of the Jets and the Dallas Stars will culminate later tonight at 9:45, give or take a couple of minutes, maybe closer to 10 o'clock, with the Illegal Curve post-game show. Discussions about the end of the Jets season or another Game 7 coming up on Monday night. By the way, in case you missed the announcement, Monday night's Game 7, if applicable, will be a 6:30 p.m. puck drop in downtown Winnipeg. So it's even earlier than 7 o'clock. It's 6:30 on Monday for Game 7, if applicable. And of course, that means we'll have the Illegal Curve pregame show starting at 4:30 p.m. on Monday, live from City Place. When we come back, Mike Heika of the Dallas Stars website joins us, a good friend of the program. He's been covering the Dallas Stars for years. We talked to him about Game 6 through the lens of the Dallas Stars. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Game 6 tonight between the Jets and the Stars. Don't go anywhere.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Bottom of the hour, welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. Mike Heika of the formerly of the Dallas Morning News. It's been a long time since he's been with the Dallas Morning News. He's been with the Dallas Stars website for a long time. Is set to join us momentarily. As soon as we have him on, we'll be able to bring him in. Ezra, you want to check in on Mike to see if he's on his way, but I'll leave that with you. The Jets and the Stars a little bit later on tonight. If you haven't already done so, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Day-long coverage, like I said, both on our YouTube channel and on the website, illegalcurve.com, as the Jets and the Stars will do battle. Lineup changes. Dave, do you think it's going to be status quo? Of course, there was no skate yesterday. Everybody was off the ice. There was a media availability at the, as the team was preparing to get on the plane to get to Dallas. What do you expect? What's your hunch? We've seen different lineups depending on if the Jets are at home or on the road, particularly on the back end. So what do you think? Is it status quo, keep what went well in Game 5, or do you think the Jets are going to look to do something a little bit different, on the road in Game 6?
Well, I'd say even once they have their morning skate at 11:30, we should take that with a grain of salt, right, Drew? Because we don't know that it'll stick based on what we saw in Game 4. It's a very good question, and I wish I had a more informed answer, and I don't like to speculate because the truth is we don't know. The lineup they iced in Game 5 was excellent from start to finish. Mm-hmm. From Connor Hellebuck out, they all played extremely well. So it is hard to break that up. However, you had the benefit of last change, and you had the benefit of being the home ice team, right? So does Scott Arniel, who showed that he was willing to change it up, go back to the one that played well? The only thing was that Connor Hellebuck wasn't at his best. So that to me is the only question. Well, I know Mike Heika is coming, so we'll get back to the Jets stuff after he's done.
There we are. Mike Heika, our good friend from the DallasStars.com, joins us. Mike, good morning. Nice to see you. How are things?
Good. How are you guys?
We're doing great. I mean, the excitement is palpable. I mean, I'm sure it's palpable in Dallas, just like it is in Winnipeg. Anytime these two, it's been a great series. It's been an entertaining series. There's been storylines galore entering tonight's Game 6. From the Dallas Stars perspective, last 2 games that they played on the road in Winnipeg, shutouts. Last 2 games they played at home, victories. Pete DeBoer, Matt Duchene, they all spoke about not wanting to come back to Winnipeg for Game 7. What needs to change from Game 5 to Game 6 from your perspective that's going to make sure Dallas ends up winning the series tonight?
It's been really interesting just watching all of this, just even the Toronto game last night. You can't manufacture desperation. And the Stars saw that in their first series with Colorado. I think they went in Game 4 and I think they lost 4 or 5-0, and they just didn't have what Colorado had. And the same thing when they've played up there with Winnipeg. I mean, it was 3-1, and obviously you're going to get Winnipeg's best game. And I thought Dallas actually played pretty well. They had a puck off a defenseman that went in. Obviously Winnipeg was a better team, but Jake was holding them in, and they were right there. But then again, one play, one bounce, which you earn, changes everything. And so what they need to do is get back to that emotional level that they've had in game 7s, that they've had, when they've been down after they lose game 1 in series. Their game 2s have been great. I honestly, truly believe that they believe this is their game 7. I don't think they're going to say that, because then if they lose, they don't want to think they can't win up there. But they really are going to have to manufacture their desperation tonight. They don't want to go back for a lot of reasons. If you really believe, this is a weird one. I'm droning on here, but they really felt that they messed up against Edmonton last year. They felt that they had a 2-1 lead. They felt that they were the better team. And then they just let it get away. So the fact that Edmonton's waiting out there, quote unquote redemption potentially, you don't want to go to a game 7. Even if you win game 7, I think you'll be exhausted. Edmonton is rested. It's just not a good formula. So the best formula for them is come in here, play your best game, get yourself ready for the next series. And I don't want to put words in their mouth, but that's what I think they're thinking.
Mike, we have to ask you about Jamie Benn, because obviously, he gets the fine for the punch. I'm not going to call it a sucker punch. It was a punch on Mark Scheifele, and Mark Scheifele was asked about it yesterday at the Winnipeg International Airport, and he said that his face was hurting a little bit from that punch. And I imagine Jamie Benn is a big man, so I can only imagine what a punch, even if it's not a full force punch from him, but. We were talking about him earlier, and obviously, he's in the back 9 of his career. He's not having the same impact. How important is his play going to be, and specifically his discipline? Because I think you'd agree he's been taking some penalties that have been costing the Stars.
Yeah, and we always talk about him being the leader, and I do think this has been one of the worst playoffs for this team. Discipline-wise, I think they lead the league in penalty minutes, time shorthanded. Mason Marchment's made mistakes. Leon Bischel, as a rookie, you kind of cut him some slack. But again, how important is it for your leaders to not do these things? And I think that's a huge thing that Jamie's Jamie. He's going to be an emotional player. We've seen it before in the past where he's, gotten into scrums, where he's gotten into And they do need that. I will say that Pete walks the line between, hey, we want to be disciplined, but we also don't want anyone to push us around. And Jamie is that guy who is not going to let you get pushed around. And so he's got to walk the line better. You would hope that he knows that. In the past, when he's had situations like this, he's come back and been very good. As a team, generally speaking, this team has gotten better in series. They seem to learn. They seem to, whatever that may be, whether that's in how to beat a goalie, how to read the refs, how to just, stay within yourself. So I'm kind of curious as to what he'll do. But yeah, he's a leader of the team. Everybody says it. And if the leader of the team is taking foolish penalties, then that's not good for your team.
Mike, I know that the Stars aren't having their morning skate for another 50 minutes or so, but the question I listened to Pete DeBoer's media availability yesterday, and one of the things he was asked was whether they would consider going 12-6. And he said, based on Miro Heiskanen and whether he's prepared to play 20, 25 minutes or whatever he said specifically. But from your perspective, having missed, since the late January till game 4 of the playoffs of the second round, what have you seen from Miro Heiskanen, and do you think that the Stars are going to be inclined to go back to 12-6?
It's funny because when I was on the plane riding back, I'm going like, yeah, they'll go 12-6. And then hearing Pete's comments yesterday, I think they're going to go 11-7 again. I could be wrong, but we'll see. I just think he thinks that they don't want to push Miro too hard. And so, I do believe that they would go with that, having that cushion, having that. They like all 6 of their defensemen other than Miro. So it's not like they, are just going to sit a guy and play him 4 minutes or whatever. They like Bishop. They like Petrovic has been really good. And Labushkin's Labushkin. So if I'm guessing, I would do that. It's funny. I'm driving over here. And again, you're always trying to be a coach. And I was thinking, if they lose this game, I would almost go 12-6. I would scratch Labushkin and Mason Marchment, and then put Beck and Colin Blackwell back in and get that fourth line going again. Because that line's been very good all season and in the playoffs especially. And just that would send the message that, hey, we're here to win a 1-0 game. We're here to play good team defense. We're here to not take stupid, penalties, because Marchment's been in on that as well. So if I'm guessing, I think they still go with 11-7 this game. But if they lose this game, I do think they have to do something drastic before they go up there.
Mike Heika is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, talking about the Dallas Stars ahead of tonight's Game 6. You mentioned Mason Marchment. There's a lot of people in the NHL who would say he's lucky to still be in the series, and we don't need to adjudicate that. But to your point, a goal and 2 assists in 12 games for Mason Marchment. 14 penalty minutes. So clearly he's been in the box more than he's been on the score sheet. Why do you think that he's struggled after back-to-back 22-goal regular seasons for the Dallas Stars?
He's a high-event player. And I think when you get into a series where teams know your MO, they know how to – what's the word I'm looking for? To push, it's not push buttons so much, it's put you in positions where you can make the wrong decision. And I don't want to say it's 50-50, but it's like close to that on here's a good decision, here's a bad decision, here's a good decision, here's a bad decision. He, for the past 2 years, has led the team in penalties taken and in penalties drawn, which is an interesting, he's just in the middle of it all, and that's who he is. So I think as you get into a series, teams learn how to take advantage of you. It'd just be like a cornerback in football. They're going to pick on you. They look over there and say, hey, we know how to get this guy off his game. We know how to, he looks like he's trying to draw penalties at times. So if that's the case, then, engage him, get him in there. And then he's thinking he's in control. Well, you may be in control and you may push him into a penalty. So it is what it is. Like I said, if I had to make a drastic decision, I would scratch him and put someone like Beck back in. Beck was a really good, consistent penalty killer as a rookie. He's a rookie, but he spent 3.5-4 years in the minors. He's a very smart veteran rookie, if that makes any sense. So getting him in there would fit what I think Winnipeg is trying to get from you. That would be a good match to stay away from, that type of game. And again, it's just Mason. Mason's Mason. He's a high event player. He's going to make good decisions. He's going to make bad decisions. So you almost to the point where, okay, take him out of the lineup. And then that's not a factor in what Winnipeg can do to you.
Mike, Drew asked you about Mason Marchment, and then you just spoke about him, a player who's been struggling a little bit in the playoffs. I need to ask you about Matt Duchene, because it's kind of mind-boggling that we're 12 games into the playoffs and he doesn't have a goal. I don't know if you agree with this, but I thought Duchene was one of the best forwards for the Stars in Game 5, right? He had that. He set up Tyler Seguin, who hit the crossbar. What, in your opinion, what's been troubling him, and is there a better time than tonight for him to pop in his first goal of the playoffs?
Shades of Colorado last year. He kind of meandered through the playoffs last year and then came up with the huge overtime winner. That would be fantastic. He has the ability. Pete said yesterday, and this is a really good point, that they have several players who at any point in time could score that goal. And that's kind of what they were the third leading scoring team in the league. And it's because of guys like that, like Matt, like, Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, Wyatt Johnston. Dodonov had 20 goals. Marchment had 20 goals. They have.
That's what's crazy. Sorry to cut you off, Mike. That's what's crazy. Is Stars are on the brink of going to the Western Conference Final, and it's really been on the back of Mikko Rantanen. They have so many players that. Rupe Hintz has been really good too, but they have 5 or 6 guys that have been struggling to score.
Yeah, they haven't been scoring. And Duchesne, you know what's great about Duchesne is that he talks to us and lets us into his brain.
Did we
lost Ezzy.
We lost Ezzy. And Mike, are you there? Can you still hear
Still
us?
there? I think, yeah, Mike's still there, I think.
Okay, yeah.
I
we're
can hear
here.
you. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, you're good, Mike.
Yeah,
you're good.
Keep going.
Somehow we lost Desi, but
Like,
oh,
just
now he's
finish
back
the
too.
thought.
Yeah,
That's okay.
finish the thought.
Perfect. It's okay. We don't need him. No. So
out a little bit, and then all of a
What?
sudden I got booted out. So I'm not sure what's happening. As long as you're here.
that's all good. That's all the people want, right? Yeah. So what Duchesne does is he lets you into his brain because his brain is working all the time. And so then he will tell you what he's thinking, what he's going through, what he's doing. And, clearly the last 2 years have been frustrating. I think he's 0.9 something during the regular season, 0.27 during the playoffs. So he went through this last year, and he hasn't played a ton of playoff games in his career. So this clearly is an issue that he's trying to deal with. But I'm with you. I thought last game he was great. He's creating. He's in the middle of it. I think they had him playing with Ben and Sagan last game. I think he's better with Marchman on that line. But, if we're going to do what we're going to do, then Ben and Sagan are fine. But, again, he will create. He will help. Their power play has actually been good in the playoffs, and he's been a big reason for that. So I think he's gotten a patience at this age that he said he didn't have, 5-8 years ago. And so now if he just helps the team win, he's fine. He doesn't really, he clearly worries about the numbers. He tells us he worries about the numbers, but he's okay with it if the team is winning. But you're right. Whether it's Duchesne or Wyatt Johnston or, Jamie Benn, somebody needs to come up and score a big goal at certain times. I mean, we saw Granlund do it last game. Granlund was a 20-goal scorer as well. They have them throughout the lineup. So any one of these guys could step up, and they kind of only just need one or two. And so if tonight would be the perfect night, if Matt Duchesne wants to be the hero, I think the American Airlines Center would love him for it.
Well, Mike, another player I want to ask you about who could be a hero, could have a big impact, hasn't yet, is Jason Robertson. Of course, injured in that last game in the regular season, missed the first round. He's played 5 games, has 1 assist. He's a guy who gets, 30, 40 goals a season. Hasn't yet had that sort of impact yet. We saw it here with the Jets, right? With Nikolai Ehlers and Gabriel Velarde. Both those guys took a little bit of time to kind of get, back. And obviously they weren't out. Not that Robertson was out as long as they were, but just from your perspective, as a guy who watches him every day, does he seem like he's kind of back to normal, back to the flow he was before he suffered the injury and ready to kind of have a breakout game?
I think he's better, but he's not to where he was. It was very interesting. So he had foot surgery in the off season, and then basically October, November was really not himself. And then once he got up and running, he was, I believe, 8th in the league from January 1 to the end of the season in point scoring, and I think 6th in goal scoring. So he has that potential once he gets up and running. The interesting point of all that is he's always played with Rope Hintz. So it was Hintz and Robertson and Joe Pavelski last year. This year it was Hintz and Robertson, and they've kind of alternated different players on the right wing, but it was always Hintz and Robertson. Well, now that they got the all-Finn line, Robertson's kind of floating around looking for a line to play on. Him and Johnston have been pretty good, and I think they could be pretty good. But again, it's an adjustment. Not only are you coming back from the injury, you're not in the role that you normally had. I think he's on the second power play right now instead of the first power play. There's just a lot of different things he's adjusting to. And then he's an interesting player because he doesn't pass the eye test. He's not a great skater. He's awkward at times, but I think that's also what makes him such a good goal scorer is you have no idea where the puck's coming from. And you'll watch a goalie and his release is okay, but you'll watch a goalie and the puck will go by him. He's like, how did that happen? And so he's got to get back to that place where he's not thinking, where he's just firing pucks from every angle. And he used to have that with Hintz. Maybe he can try and get it with Johnston now. We'll see. But it is a process. but I like Jason Robertson. I think, it's funny. A lot of people look at Nick or whatever and think, okay, well, he's just a skill scorer guy. He's like 6'3", 210. He's not a small guy. He can get into areas where he can really create. And then he also has that ability to just fling a puck out of nowhere, unexpected shots, let's say. And if he can get back into that, I do think that will make him more successful.
Well, unexpected saves could be how you describe some of Jake Ottinger's performance in Game 5, the one with his back to the play where he saved it, or whether he saved it or the shot just went right into his pad, whatever, potato. Ottinger has, of course, been the story for the last couple of games. He's been terrific. The Jets win Game 5 4-0, but frankly, it could have been 4-0 after 30 minutes of that game instead of after 60 minutes because of how good Ottinger was. When Jake Ottinger is at his best, Mike, and you've seen him at his best and you've seen him through the struggles, what are the difference between his two, the games? When he's at his best, what are you seeing from Jake Ottinger? And has that been what you've seen in a large part of this series?
Yeah, what he is he's a very good positional goalie. He's huge. Like if you ever look at him, he looks like a tight end. I think he's listed at 6'6", 225, something like that. And he just lets the puck hit him. And he reads the play well. He's in the right place at the right time. And then he also has his, what's it called, swag, as the kids call it. So if you watch him when he makes a good save and he's on his game, he just kind of tosses the puck like, take that, and throws it over to the faceoff circle. And he has that about him. And I do know that he wants to be the Olympic goalie. I think, that is driving him in a lot of ways. And so I think you're seeing the best Jake Ottinger you can get right now. And the other thing is he's 25 or 26, and he's already played like 58 playoff games. So he has his physical ability, and he also has experience of going through this before. They went to the Western Conference Finals last year. They went the year before. He's had some really big performances. Now, all that said, he's also had some bad games in the playoffs, so he can be inconsistent. But I think that's kind of goaltending these days. We've seen it from some of the best ones in the league, where it's up and down. Connor, obviously, where it's up and down, and you just don't know from game to game. But there's a couple of things that he likes. One, he's been really good at home in the playoffs, and two, he gets better as the series goes on. So his 5, 6, 7 numbers are better than his 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers. So the hope is for the Stars, at least, that they're going to see the best Jake Ottinger they can tonight.
Mike, I wanted to ask you about someone maybe who's a little bit more obscure on the Stars, but Sam Steele. He doesn't have any goals. He's got 5 assists in 12 games. I remember I've told Dave and Drew this, but I remember, back in 2016, that was the year the Jets took Laine and Logan Stanley. Anaheim took him late in the first round. He had 130 points for the Regina Pats in junior. He was incredible. One of the best players in the Western League. He's really stood out to me with his speed and penalty killing, and he's just been noticeable. Obviously, doesn't have any goals, but I was going to check Puckpedia. I'm not sure how many years he's under contract, but he just seems like a perfect kind of bottom 6 guy for the Stars with the potential to play in the top 6.
Yeah, and that fourth line has been kind of a rotating thing where, even Dodonov, who's a Pete favorite, has gotten scratched at times, and Sam Steele's a constant. One, he's a center, so that helps him. 2, he's pretty good at faceoffs. 3, he's a great penalty killer. So he has been a driving force. I think you're right about the speed. It's an interesting thing watching all of this stuff as far as how players get drafted, how they move up, how they find their niche. So we played against him when he was in Minnesota, and he was on the top line with oh God, my brain's going crazy. Kiprusoff, and then the other guy, the guy from Norway.
Zuccarello.
Yeah, so they had a top line of Sam Steele centering Zuccarello and Kiprusoff Kaprizov, one of those two.
It's been a long playoffs. I get you, Mike.
We know what you meant, Mike.
You fly every other day, and your brain just gets foggy. Anyway, point being is he was good. And then they scratched him a couple times in the playoffs and then opted not to sign him. He became an unrestricted free agent at 25 as a former first-round draft pick. And you're like, this is interesting. And so the Stars picked him up. They signed him to like 1-year deals, basically at $850 or 1.1 or whatever. And I think he just got a 2-year extension in the middle of this year. So they definitely like him. But he's an interesting player. He is smart. I think he's smart. He's fast. Those are all things Pete likes. And it's interesting. Beck is fast. Blackwell is fast. So that's why I was saying about trying to get that line back together again. That line was really good during the year. And they all played off each other. Maverick Bork played on that line at times too. And they know how to make smart plays, which I think this team needs right now. I don't think they've always been smart. And part of that is dealing with Rantanen and moving him up and down the lineup. And, just they're not as consistent as they were before. And I think that I'd like to see if they can get back to that point.
Like you talk about smart, you talk about all these players who have had an impact. One thing that's notable is how many of them have gone through the Texas Stars and had impacts with Texas, a team that is currently in the Calder Cup, up 1-0 over Milwaukee. So from your color, I should say, on the Western side of things, but from your perspective, how impactful? I mean, we always testify to how good a GM Jim Nill is, but it's not often you have success in both your NHL teams and AHL teams. Usually one comes at the expense of the other. And in Texas, both with Dallas and the Texas Stars, it doesn't seem to be that case. But just how impactful has that been for this organization? Because when you look at, especially defensively, you look at those guys, so many of them have gone through Texas before they got to Dallas.
Yeah, I think Thomas Harley's the best example. So he came up through the bubble, so he didn't have to go back to the OHL, but he came in, they wanted to rush him into the NHL. He didn't do as well. Pete came in and said, look, you need to go to the minors. And so when he did, I think Thomas didn't want to, but then after he was down there and he worked with the coaches down there and learned how to play defense. And then, even guys like Petrovic, veteran guys like that also help these younger guys. He's one of the reasons he's here right now is because he helped Bischel during the season so much. So Neil Graham and his coaching staff I just think they're fantastic. I think I could be wrong. We'll see. I think Neil Graham can be a head coach in this league. He's still young and it's still a process. I think if he had a nice run this year, that would certainly open some eyes on giving him an opportunity somewhere. But they do a great job. And Jim does a great job. Scott White does a great job. If you look at, like, people are always talking about Hershey and how it feeds Washington, and Washington's a pretty consistent organization. So when you can get those teams and find that balance between, hey, we want to develop some kids and push them up, but we also want to win. And that they want to win down there in Texas. And so they have some good veteran AHL players there to help bring the other guys along. And then that helps you win games. It helps you have some excitement. I think the fact Tom Gallardi owns them, you have, synergy so that you're not, you're all on the same page. That is a great thing because they've had training camp down there. It's a great facility, and Austin's a wonderful town. They have synergy with what they're trying to do. And I think they've been building to this point. So it'll be really interesting to see what they can do this year. And the biggest problem is they have brought up a lot of the kids now, guys like Bischel or Harley or whoever aren't down there. And like even Oscar Beck. I mean, he was a great player down there. Now he's up here. And they kind of given away a lot of their draft picks. I agree with everything you're saying. It's going to be interesting trying to maintain that going forward because it does seem like they've drained a lot of what they have down there.
Oh, Mike, you're going to be on a plane one way or another. It's either going to be to Edmonton for the
No, we get them here. We get the home ice.
But eventually you got to go to
Eventually, yeah. If I do, that'd be fine.
Yeah. Or you're going to come back to Winnipeg for Game 7.
You're scaring me there. I don't want to have to go on more plane.
You leave that early. You might have to, but you don't. It's not a guarantee that you're going to be on a plane tomorrow. Time will tell after tonight's game between the Jets and the Stars if it'll be tomorrow to Winnipeg or if it'll be next week to Edmonton at some point in time. Mike Heike, our good friend, thanks for joining us. Thanks for doing this. Enjoy the game tonight. We look forward to more of your coverage on the Dallas Stars website.
Thank you very much. It's always fun. I got to tell you guys, I think it's a great show.
Thank you,
Thanks
Mike.
so much,
Mike.
Mike.
Enjoy. We'll see you later.
You're one of
All
our
the best.
favorite guests to have on, going back to the TSN 1290 days. That's why we always text you.
That's right.
I always loved Winnipeg. I don't know if it was you guys, but we used to go to Boston Pizza or something like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think,
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
would
we've
go
got
there.
like 55 of them here in Winnipeg.
It's true.
And they're a good sponsor of the show. So good
There you
plug.
go. Hey,
there you
good
go, Mike.
plug.
Yeah, you plugged them for us. Thank you, Mike. Be well. We'll see you later.
All right, talk to you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Mike Heika, our good friend, great interview. Has covered the Dallas Stars for years. Knows the organization, knows the team inside and out, and that's why we're so thrilled to have him on this morning as we preview Game 6 between the Jets and the Stars.
Getting pumped up for tonight, boys. I mean, I'm not getting pumped up for the -5 weather outside, but
it's okay. We need it. It's helping it. It's helping with the fire situation. So
That's right.
a little
It is.
bit of short-term pain in terms of the weather for long-term gain for everybody.
I'm just
within
worried about your
Manitoba.
vegetable garden in your backyard, Drew.
Well, you don't plant in Manitoba, as till after
After May long.
After May long weekend.
you know how picky Drew is about his zucchinis.
Laura brought in all the plants and the flowers that she had put in the planters, so those are safe and sound. And then we'll be.
So
I think
basically
we'll be
your
okay.
house is full of insects. Awesome.
No, she put them into the garage. The garage is
Oh, a
is
garage, la-di-da.
nice. Oh, what do you call it? A car hole. In any event, we'll come back. Paul Edmonds joining us in about 10 or so minutes time. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show rolls on this Saturday morning.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now, you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Hour number 2 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. Paul Edmonds set to join us coming up in about 10 minutes time, give or take. Game 6, the Jets and the Dallas Stars. The post-game show later tonight, right around 9:45, 10 o'clock, depending on overtime and anything along those lines. We'll be back here on our YouTube channel. I will be absent. Fortunately, more important events call me away. my parents are celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary tonight. So I had to weigh the options about, remaining as their son versus doing the post-game show. And I elected to remain their son, and I will be at their 50th anniversary celebration tonight. So I'll leave the post-game show in the good hands of Dave and Ezzy tonight. Time will tell if it's the end of the season or if it's talking about Game 7. But either way, that is where I will be later on tonight.
Well, Ezzy, obviously it can't be the last show. That's why the Jets are going to win, because obviously Drew Mandel.
They're doing it for Drew.
They're doing it for Drew. That's the mantra. They're not, the whole we believe thing is so tired. So yesterday, now it's do it for Mandel. Congratulations to Tanis and Sheldon, of course, celebrating 50. That's a huge milestone for them. Yeah. And again, Ezzy, I did offer to Sheldon that have Ezzy jump out of a cake for the anniversary, but he did say, unfortunately, because Drew is going to be away from the show, he didn't want this to become the Dave Minuk experience, Ezzy. So he's letting you stay and do the show rather than jump out of a cake.
I want to echo what you said. Happy 50th to Sheldon and Tanis. That's an incredible milestone. And I'm assuming the only reason we weren't invited was because we have to do the show. Absolutely. I mean, otherwise, if there wasn't a Jets game, I'm assuming we would be invited.
We're the list. I just
exactly. So just wanted to get that.
It was just a delayed invitation, and then they won Game 5, and obviously that's what prevented you guys from receiving your.
All good.
So apologies for that, of course. In any event, tonight later on, and of course, complete coverage all day long on the website illegalcurve.com, and again here on our YouTube channel as well. So we're looking forward to that and a big day, Game 6. I asked you about lineup changes before, Dave. And before we had brought Mike Heika in, and we'll bring Paulie in about 5 to 7 minutes or so. Go back to that answer. You sort of were cut off about the potential lineup changes. Jets have deployed different rosters, especially on the back end, given the matchups on the road. I look at Hayden Fleury's 8 minutes on home ice. Is that a sign that maybe the Jets don't have full faith in him? That's not an insult, rather it's just a matter of the circumstances and everything else. Could you see somebody else coming in and changing things up on the back end for the Winnipeg Jets, whether it's Hayden Fleury, whether it's a Luke Shen, whether it's a Colin Miller? I don't know that Logan Stanley is a legitimate option at this point for the Jets after he's missed so many games in a row. But do you think it's the status quo, or do you think there's a change?
I think it's an excellent question, as I was getting into just before Mike joined us, and I don't have it, unfortunately. Again, it's just speculative at best, because Scott Arniel has shown that he's willing to make that change, right? Like, he was willing to make the change in Game 4, and then he went back to the lineup in Game 5, and so we know that it worked well in this configuration for Game 5, which obviously was that must win. I don't know. Like, to me, it's hard to see, like, there may be, I don't know that I'm necessarily seeing personnel changes as to maybe he changes up the way the lines are configured. It's such an interesting question, because it's hard to go from, you just had a ton of success with a 4-0 game.
Right.
How do you change that formula when you've just won? Now you could say, well, you didn't win with this lineup in Game 3, because I think this was the same lineup as they had in Game 3. This was the one that wasn't as good a road game. So you have to.
They didn't win Game 4 either.
Yeah,
they
but
did
Game
not.
4 was better. So
that's what I'm saying.
Point there, Dave. To your point, could you see, in Game 4, Scott Arniel elected to put Alex Iafallo back with Scheifele and Connor to sort of have that defensive conscious on their wing. Could you see him do something along those lines again? As he's shaking his head.
No, I don't think so, Drew. I mean, I guess I could see it as a mid-game change. I don't know if that's what you're asking, or if you're asking to start the game, but I mean, regardless, it's adjustments in game. And I just think, with how well that line played in Game 5, and I agree with Dave, right? Like, it's the old cliche, don't mess with a winning formula here. I don't see any changes really, at least to start the game, right? Like, I think Perfetti, Nemestikov, Ehlers, they were really good in Game 5. We obviously saw Lowry, Ehlers, and Velarde, which honestly was an intriguing line. I think there's a lot of Jets fans that like that line. I mean, we saw Lowry, Ehlers, and Iafallo together a little bit during the regular season, right? But I just think in basically, winner take all, so to speak, Game 6, even though that's really reserved for Game 7, we all agreed that Game 6 really is a Game 7 for both teams, considering how good the Jets have been in Winnipeg and how good the Stars have been in Dallas. But I think that you're going to see these lines stick together. If anything, the one move that I might want to see is Mason Appleton drop down to the fourth line. Like we've talked about, Appleton has struggled in the series, even though he's got 7 assists. I mean, he was definitely more effective, in my opinion, in the St. Louis series. So, that's one thing, one adjustment that you could see. And obviously the guy that would be elevating would be Alex Iafallo. But no, I think, this is all about, who got you to this point. And, the Jets, these are the lines that the Jets went with for the majority of the season, and they were successful, right? So I think the only way we see like the blender come out in full force, Drew, is if the Jets are really struggling to create offense through a period or two.
You see, I look back at the series, the games they've played in Dallas, obviously, and I would say that, game 4 was obviously better for the Jets than game 3. Now, game 3 was close until the controversial goal was scored, but, so be it. But Dallas was the better of the two teams. Game 4, the general consensus has been that the Jets, played well, probably deserved maybe a better result. Jake Ottinger was the big difference.
Ottinger stole it, no doubt.
I wouldn't be surprised if Scott Arniel goes to what worked in game 4, because the lines in game 3, weren't great. They didn't have a great performance in Dallas, in game 3. I wouldn't be surprised if the, because you don't have that last change, because Pete DeBoer is going to be able to sort of pick and choose who he can get Rantanen out there against. And frankly, if the Jets neutralize Rantanen and somebody else beats them, c'est la vie, so be it. You don't want Rantanen to be the guy who beats you. You don't want it to be their best player that you weren't able to stop. You want to figure out a way to stop Rantanen from being the reason you lose the series. And so from my perspective, given you don't have last change, maybe that means you have that defensive consciousness up and down the lineup, as opposed to loading up, Scheifele, Connor, Velarde on that top line, where you had that ability to then line match Lowry against Rantanen on home ice for game 5. Let's bring in Paul Edmonds. I can see he's adjusting the camera backstage. I think he's going to give it. He's waving, so he's giving us the thumbs up. There, and now he puts his hand in front of the camera just as I bring him in. Come on,
look
Paulie.
at that! Look at that sexy haircut that Paul Edmonds has got going on there.
I had to turn on my microphone.
There you go. That's an important thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't entrust any of you 3 clowns to do that, so I had to do it myself.
At least we spent enough time to, I believe that's called muscle memory, to know where our limitations are.
How are you guys?
We're doing great, Paulie. How
Yeah.
are you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah.
It's our pleasure. The travel back and forth and the time constraints, we know how busy you are, so we appreciate you jumping on with us this morning.
problem.
The Jets are going to be on the ice in about 75 minutes time ahead of their latest, biggest game of the season. Being around the team, sort of what's the vibe? We spoke to them, or Dave spoke to them, all the media spoke to them as they were on the plane heading to Dallas yesterday. What's your sort of impression about where this team is at mentally after Game 5's victory, entering Game 6 tonight?
Couple things, Drew. It was never really that dour, even though they had lost Game 4 and they were down 3-1 in the series and heading back home, and it was a must win. And now they just feel, I think, a sense of confidence, and belief would be the other word that I would use. I mean, this is a team that won 56 games and finished first. We know all of that, has gotten down in this series. But I will say this, they have played pretty consistent in the last 2 games. And even though one of them was a 3-1 loss here in Dallas for Game 4, I really liked their game. And then they took that game, in my opinion, and they applied that to game number 5, although they exceeded whatever they were doing, buoyed by, of course, a home crowd and getting a good goaltending performance and starting with the lead. And let's see now if they can make it 3 in a row, because as some have said, you treat this Game 6 like Game 7, because there is no tomorrow or Monday in this case if you don't win tonight. And I thought that it was really interesting because Dave was there yesterday, and when Scott Arniel said about the fact that he was asked about the streak, right, or the skid, whatever you want to call it. They haven't won, certainly going back a number of years on the road in the playoffs, but more specifically through the St. Louis and now the Dallas series. And he said streaks are meant to be broken, and we're going to try to do that tomorrow, meaning today. And I just thought that was a great attitude, because you should know that at some point, if you've won 10 in a row, it's coming to an end. If you've lost 10 in a row, it's coming to an end. So from that standpoint, I think the mood, to answer your question sincerely and succinctly, is they're pretty good and pretty confident about their abilities to get this back to Winnipeg on Monday night.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that, Paulie. And I wanted to ask you what you think the spillover effect is going to be from the Jamie Benn, Mark Scheifele incident. Obviously, I think both players know that they have to be disciplined. Both players know that they can't, put their team at a man disadvantage. But I mean, that was a punch kind of felt around the hockey world, right? Like that wasn't me giving Drew a love tap. That was a big punch from Jamie Benn, and Mark Scheifele talked about it at the airport yesterday. But I mean, I guess, and as part of that question, how important do you think discipline is going to be? Because I think you'd agree, both teams have kind of gotten a little out of control over the last few games.
I think discipline will be widely important in this one. I mean, Winnipeg finally got their power play going in game number 5 with a couple of power play goals, and yet the penalty kill also at the same time reduced the Dallas Stars to nothing after scoring a power play goal in 2 straight games. It was 0 for 4. So if the specialty teams are all of a sudden starting to cook for the Winnipeg Jets, you want to make sure that the Dallas Stars take the penalties and you don't, and you get the advantage that way. I think that the one thing that the punch around the world has heard, certainly in the Jets dressing room, or at least those that cover the team and follow it, is that you always want, as Scott O'Neill has said, and even the players have said, that the stars have to be the stars at this time of year. Well, I don't know that there was any more engagement in Mark Scheifele's game than you could see. Certainly, he's going to try to provide offense, but he was right in there as well, and he wasn't backing down from Jamie Benn. So there is discipline there. You have to defend yourself. It was ridiculous the way they called that. The officiating called it and sorted it out, but that's for another day.
I agree. You and Mitch must have been scratching your heads in the broadcast booth.
Well, honestly, for me to rant and rave about the officiating on the air doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because it's not going to change anything. And I was taught a long time ago, when it's something really egregious that you don't agree with, pull that one out of your pocket, but just don't do it on every single time you disagree with a call. So you roll with the punches on that one, right? But from this standpoint, Jamie Benn can't play that game in this game today, because if he does, he's sitting in the penalty box, and he's no good for his team. And Jamie Benn has been a very good hockey player for the Dallas Stars and a very good leader. So you want to temper your tempers here for sure. But boy, if this game has a little bit of an edge to it, then that's, I think, what we're expecting. In fact, I talked to Jamie Benn before game 4, because you could start to see that this thing was percolating a little bit when it came to some of that stuff. And he said to me, he looked me right in the eye, he said, the longer this goes, the nastier it's going to get. So, from that standpoint, we have seen that. And then he couched it by saying, and we're okay with that. Well, okay, you're okay with that, and that's good. I mean, it makes for way more engagement. But you're right. I mean, succinctly, again, you have to make sure that you are not taking the roughing penalties for punching somebody in the face at the wrong time, because that could be the goal that decides this game or the series in the case of the Dallas Stars, and have Winnipeg either heading it back home or heading back home without the Dallas Stars in tow.
Paul, one of the things I've noticed from listening to the media availabilities with Pete DeBoer and Matt Duchene is that they feel it's a real possibility of coming back to Winnipeg for Game 7. It's unusual, because a lot of times teams tend to focus on, we're just talking about Game 6. That's our focus. We're going to win Game 6. We're not going to have to think about it. But I've just noticed it creeping into their voices a little bit, that little bit of doubt, if you will, that this is a very good Jets team. They're aware of that. So coming from that idea of this being a very good Jets team, a team coming off a 4-0 win, we know that the morning skate is until 11:30, but how do you think this is going to be configured? Do you think that Scott O'Neill is going to be inclined to stick with what worked really well at home? Or do you think he goes back to the kind of configuration he used in Game 4, that even though they lost, they played a pretty good road game?
Well, those questions were asked, as you know, David, of him yesterday, and he was pretty vague, very ambiguous in relaying any information on what he would do. When he put the lines in the mixer for game number 4, they got 70 shots toward Jake Ottinger. Right? Things worked that way. They just didn't find the back of the net. Then he went back to the original configuration of his lines for game number 5. So I'm not quite sure what he's going to do here. And here's the interesting part. Before game 4 in that skate, he had the original line configuration and then changed everything after the warm-up skate. So nobody had any idea what was going to be happening when it came to how the lines were set out. And so I would look for something along those lines. So I'm not going to predict on anything from what the Jets may or may not run in what is now, I think, an optional practice at 11:30 this morning here in Dallas. But you've got to take certainly what Winnipeg has done in the last 2 games, if you're Dallas, quite seriously. And that's maybe why we're getting a little bit of a reading between the lines on what Duchesne and DeBoer are saying, right? From the standpoint that they know where Winnipeg finished. They know the season series. They know how this series is going right now. And I'm not quite going to say overtly that Winnipeg has started to take over this series. I mean, they're still trailing. There's no question about it. But I like the way they played, and they've been more overt in getting to their game and playing their game on the last couple of games than any point, I think, consistently in these playoffs, including the St. Louis series. So that, to me, would be scary for the Dallas Stars, and that's what they're seeing. I think they want to end it tonight, full stop, because I don't believe that they would have a very good feeling going into Game 7 in Winnipeg, a place where they've been shut out twice in a row now, and the series right now in Winnipeg, at least in the last 2 games, is 8 goals for the Jets, 0 for the Stars.
Yeah, those aren't great numbers for the Dallas Stars perspective. Paul Edmonds, our guest Saturday morning. This is the Illegal Curve hockey show, talking about the Jets and the Stars game 6 a little bit later tonight. Mikko Rantanen, you talk about the Stars' performance on the road in the last couple games. Well, Mikko Rantanen hasn't been a big factor. The other games, the home games, he's been significant. He's been a challenge. Pete DeBoer, last change. What's the Jets, sort of your answer to the question about potential line changes? The Jets did a pretty good job in trying to mitigate the impact of Rantanen in game 4, despite losing that game. And I think a lot of that was shouldering the defensive responsibility up and down the lineup. What's the mindset? I mean, I was saying to the guys earlier, Paulie, that, from my perspective, you can't let Rantanen be the one who beats you tonight. If other guys step up and beat you, say la vie, so be it. But it can't be Rantanen because he's their superstar. You got to try and figure out a way to slow him down. What do you think the Jets can do on the road without last change to try and prevent this being the Rantanen show like we've seen at different points this playoffs?
Well, what we've seen in this playoffs, Drew, is Mikko Rantanen being double shifted. And if you look the other night, he was 25 minutes of time on ice. I wonder, they call him the Moose, but I just wonder how much you might have left if you are banging bodies and playing the way this series has gone. And let's not forget, Winnipeg almost 2-1 out hit the Dallas Stars in game number 5. I don't look for the Jets to come off that game plan either here in this building. Play to the edge, as we talked about with Dave's question about discipline or Ezzy's question about discipline, but certainly finish your check and finish on somebody, including Mikko Rantanen. The one thing that I really like what the Winnipeg Jets have done in the 2 games in Winnipeg, and they need to transfer that here tonight, is their sticks have been very good, and they've taken away the middle of the ice from Mikko Rantanen. So when he's tried to dangle into the middle, here comes the poke check or a stick or some back pressure, and they've really neutralized him that way. But he's going to be double shifted, and that is going to be the challenge for the coaching staff for the Jets, particularly Scott Arniel, is not having last change. Who do you want? Because you're going to need 2 sets of either a forward line or a defense pairing that you want up against Mikko Rantanen. So you're going to try to get Mikko Rantanen when he's out there up against the Pionk and Sandberg pairing, and then the DeMello and certainly Morrissey pairing. So you've got to have that in your back pocket. There are ways around it with last change. But boy, if Mikko Rantanen is neutralized by Winnipeg, and you can neutralize Mikael Granlund, the other guy, then I like your chances, because when he wasn't going, that being Rantanen in game number 4, Granlund was. And so from that standpoint, Dallas needs a little more of that, not just to pin it all on one player. I mean, Matt Duchene doesn't have a goal in this series, doesn't have a goal in the playoffs. I think there's only 2 goals for Tyler Seguin, although he did hit the crossbar in game number 5. So I think there's some guys that you want to concentrate on, Mikko Rantanen being one of them, but he's going to see a lot of ice time. And I wonder what happens with him and the stamina if this gets to game number 7 with him playing another 25 or 26 minutes a night and the physical toll that this series can take.
Paulie, we're talking about, the Jets needing to neutralize Mikko Rantanen and neutralizing Mikael Granlund, throw in Rupe Hintz, who's their other line mate. What about Dallas having to neutralize Nikolai Ehlers? That's who I wanted to ask you about. He's got 5 goals in this series. I don't have to tell you that, that, but to me, this is maybe the best Ehlers has ever looked in the playoffs. What are you kind of seeing maybe that's, and obviously it took it maybe a game or 2 to get going coming off the injury, but what are you seeing from Ehlers? Because it looks like for a guy who's obviously a pending UFA, it looks like he's leaving it all on the leaving it out there on the ice.
A great question, because I wanted to talk about Nikolai Ehlers in this segment. I think along with Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, he's been the one guy that's been driving the bus here. Yep. And he has 3 goals in the last 2 games, if I'm correct. Yep. And just the way he's coming off that goal line and taking the puck to the net and using his skating and wheels, there's another dynamic element to him that really is hard to game plan against when you're the Dallas Stars, with the speed that he provides and where you put him either on the power play or on his line. And it seems now he's got Vladislav Nemestikov going somewhat. So that will only help Winnipeg. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we talked about the engagement of your stars being your stars and having to play to a certain level, not just provide offense, but play to a certain level of compete. And Nikolai Ehlers is right there for my money. I really like his game. And I don't know, guys, I don't want to assume, but you almost wonder if he knows that this might be the end of it for him in Winnipeg. Also, at the same time, if it is, there's a lot of eyes watching him with maybe a contract to say, hey, do you want to sign this for X number of dollars? So it benefits him while it benefits the Winnipeg Jets if he plays like that. So a great symbiotic relationship that way between a player on an expiring contract and a team that really needs more than one line or a couple players to go offensively. And Nikolai has certainly been that. Again, at the expense of repeating myself, I don't look for Nikolai to come off that game. I mean, with speed tonight and driving and dropping that shoulder and taking that puck to the net with some authority, I want to see that tonight. And if you see that from Nikolai Ehlers early in this hockey game, you know that his game is right, and you know that he might just have a few Jets join and say, hey, get on my back. I'm going to try to lead this team offensively, or at least be part of it on a 2-line attack tonight for Winnipeg.
Well, Paulie, you talk about a guy whose game is right. Well, there's no doubt about it that Connor Hellebuck, 22 saves, his game was right in Winnipeg, but we know that on the road, it has been a different story, much like it has for the team. And I don't blame one player, but we know how big a role he plays in this game. Is it simple as Connor Hellebuck stepping up his game and out-dueling Jake Ottinger? Or how are we going to know that Connor Hellebuck is right? Is it going to take that first grade A save? What are you looking for from Connor Hellebuck to know he's in tonight's game the way he was in the last game in Winnipeg?
Don't profess to know goaltending very well, but I do know some people that do, and have some friends that are either old goalies or have sons and daughters that are playing in the position. So when you talk to them, the one thing that happened with Connor, certainly when I think he lost some confidence, or he wouldn't certainly, I think, tell you that, but when it looked like it to all of us, he was backing down into the net. And I just thought the last couple of games, he's been a little further up to the top of the crease, especially in game number 5. And he's been fronting pucks and looking confident and using that big 6'4", 6'5" frame of his to make sure that he just is big and bold and boring. So to your point, I don't know that he needs to come out here and 2-pad stack everything and be bouncing around like Dominic Hasek. I think he just has to make the first save and don't let in a weak one. Certainly, I think if that happens and he gets to feel the puck early on, the Jets will feel that confidence from him. And I think he's feeling it right now. I think he feels that his game is turned around in the last couple of games. But at the same time, I think if it's Connor Hellebuck and trying to outduel the other goaltender. That's not what you're about here right now. You're just about making the save that you have to make. We talked about that on our program going into game number 5, and he did exactly that and post another shutout. So you're trying to build off of that tonight, but also at the same time, you look at the way that the 2 goals were scored in this building the last time. Granlund's goal comes in over the blue line, a bit of a screen shot. He doesn't see it. 2-on-1 back the other way. I mean, to the top shelf, beats him on the glove side. You don't want to give up those opportunities off the rush if you're Winnipeg defensively, for your goaltender to have to save. But at the same time, I think that Connor Hellebuck will feel really good about his game from game number 5 coming into game number 6 and how he's playing right now. But the telltale is, where is he standing in his crease? And if he's up at the top of the blue ice, Connor Hellebuck is really feeling it that night.
Paul Edmonds, our guest Saturday morning, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, game 6 later tonight between the Jets and the Dallas Stars. I look at the back end for the Jets, Paulie. Hayden Fleury, great story. Fantastic story, out of nowhere story, but only 8.5 minutes of ice time in game 5. Is that something that you expect to see maintained in tonight's contest? Obviously, a lot harder when you don't have the last change, but are you expecting this to be the Samberg and Morrissey show on the left side for the Winnipeg Jets? They played together 52 minutes, in the game, basically in game 5.
Absolutely, I do, especially because of last change and especially with the double shifting of Mikko Rantanen. Now, if the Jets get a couple goal lead, that might change because then you can absorb a few more minutes from that bottom pairing of Luke Schenn and Hayden Fleury, who I have felt that they played just the way you need them to play. They've just been physical. They've moved the puck. There is an ability with Hayden Fleury. If there is some trouble, he has the escape ability to skate the puck out of his own zone and out of some trouble, which is great because I think that's an excellent compliment to Luke Schenn. But your top 4 defensemen are going to see the majority of minutes tonight if it's a tight game, and I expect that it will be, gentlemen. There's no reason to think.
For a second, Paulie. Sorry, You expect that it's going to be Luke Schenn again? I mean, we've seen Luke Schenn perform better at home than on the road, and we've seen Colin Miller on the road a little bit. But you're expecting it to be sort of status quo again?
Yeah, and the reason for that is Luke Schenn's been around. He has that experience. I don't believe that he's hurt Winnipeg since he's come back into the lineup. There's a physicality that Winnipeg wants to continue with Luke Schenn. And there's a bite to his game that I think complements Adam Lowry's bite to the game on the forward and the back end. This was the position that we thought that Logan Stanley was going to assume this year when Brendan Dillon went to the New Jersey Devils. And now you've got the guy in there that really balances things out when it comes to being able to defend your players, defend your space, the goal line, the slot area in front of your own net. So, yeah, to be quite sincere on my predictions on what's going to happen, I don't see any changes for the Jets for the lineup here tonight. Not on any good authority other than why would you change it when you won the last game? And things seem to have been paired pretty well between Luke Schenn and Hayden Fleury, so I'm not changing that, especially if you're planning on running your top 4D a lot more than you are your third pairing. So look for that tonight. Things could change, of course, but if Winnipeg does get a lead, then you're going to try to move some of those guys in and have them anchor a few more minutes because you're anticipating game 7 and you want everybody to be fresh.
Paul, I wanted to ask you about Cole Perfetti because I think you'd agree, even though he doesn't have a goal yet in this series, I think he's played really well. And we all know what happened in game 7 between the Jets and the Blues with the Manitoba Miracle tying it up with 1.6 seconds left. What have you seen from Perfetti that gives you confidence, that he's due for a breakout, whether that's in game 6 or hopefully game 7?
Just the ability to get in on the puck and be 5'10" or whatever he is. And a lot of times battle to the point where the support comes in and you win the puck battle, or emerge off the wall himself to make a play. And while he hasn't put up a lot of offense, as you mentioned, Ezzy, I think that that's just about to come, right? When you're making those plays and winning those battles, at some point there's going to be the reward. So I like Cole Perfetti's game. What a quantum leap he's made in his game this year. I mean,
absolutely.
We've talked about that. Even though he had 19 goals last year and only 18 in the regular season this year, I think what you're saying is the 18 that he had this year were of more quality because of the way he played and playing all year, as opposed to being a healthy scratch and only playing in one playoff game last year. He has become a real asset to this Winnipeg Jets forward core and the attacking core of it. So from Cole Perfetti's standpoint, keep doing what you're doing if you have a message for him, because something's going to pop for you. And we've also seen him hang on to pucks longer, right? We've also seen him get to some of those areas that he was probably really prone to getting to as a major junior player where nobody could stop him. And we're seeing those layers being built incrementally in his game, and particularly in the playoffs. The big stage hasn't scared him off at all. And look for him when you need some of that secondary scoring that we've talked about from some of your budding star players. Might happen maybe tonight for Cole Perfetti in his line with Vladislav Nemestikov and Nikolai Ehlers.
Paul, take us from the ice to the broadcast booth. What's it been like calling these games? I mean, there hasn't been second round action in some time. I mean, I get a kick out of hearing your voice, seeing the videos online, but seeing them go viral.
No. Hellebuck says no.
But all of that, the Manitoba Miracle, as he mentions, you calling the goals there, like. What's it been like for you personally to be able to be involved in the way you do, bringing the game to so many people and having an impact and seeing your voice, being mentioned on ESPN and all around North America and the world?
Well, for a number of years, of course, Dennis would come back from TV and I would be involved in the radio, but you didn't have the call of the game, right? Mm-hmm. And so in the last few years, this has been the opportunity that you work for in your career. And everybody talks about this is the best time of year. The playoffs are the best time of year, and it truly is. One of the things I think, if there's young broadcasters out there, the prep work that you do for all 82 games is voluminous at points, because you're preparing one night for Nashville and the next day you're in Buffalo, and it's two different teams, and Buffalo you don't see very often because they're over in the Eastern Conference. So there's a lot more work, right? Whereas here, you're really delving into not learning the rosters. You know everybody from both teams. You certainly know your team, but you know the Dallas Stars and the St. Louis Blues before that, because you're now into game 6, and the previous series went 7 games. Yeah. Now you're really looking as a guy that loves the game, the inner workings, the game within the game, the chess match. Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? And those are the questions that you ask, and those are the types of things that you look for on the ice. And you're really able to break it down and dissect it a lot further. It's the anatomy of playoff hockey that I think we all love. It's been fantastic. The games have been great. Fortunately, there hasn't been a lot of overtime. And honestly, who would want that with these 9 o'clock starts at night, right? Like, we've just had far too many of them. No complaints. It's just hard for everybody. And so let me take you back to this one. What was the first game of this series? Was it a Wednesday night? It was a Wednesday night, and it was a late start. And you're coming off of the big game on the Sunday night that the Jets had. I mean, Winnipeg loses by 1 goal. They didn't play very badly, but you just felt that there wasn't the emotion in the game in game 1. Right. And Winnipeg's talking about that. They lost home ice advantage in that game. But it's built up from there. And as a broadcaster, you don't play, but you feel and mirror the travel, the preparedness, the emotion of all of what's going on. So you might wake up today, as I did, and be a little tired, and then you get to the rink and it's like, okay, let's go, right? And that's the way I'll feel for 7 o'clock tonight as well. I've just really enjoyed it. And that's why I think there's the old adage and the saying that there's nothing that beats playoff hockey. And really, from my vantage point and the way I'm squinting at this one, there really isn't anything that beats playoff hockey.
Paul Edmonds, Mitchell Clinton. The call will be tonight starting at 7 o'clock with our friends at 680 CJOB and again on Power 97. Paulie, thank you. Morning skate. You say you think it's probably an optional. That's coming up soon. We'll look for your coverage. Enjoy the call tonight. We will absolutely do the same. We'll see you back in Winnipeg. Time will tell if it's for a game 7 or if it's for a lock or clean out day. But either way, it should be a dandy tonight in Texas.
Thanks a lot, guys. Anytime.
Our pleasure.
Go Jets,
Thank
go.
you.
We'll see.
There you go. Thanks,
Cheers,
Paulie.
Paulie.
Enjoy.
Thanks, Paul.
Our good friend. Oh, we got a different view. I don't know why that happened. Nobody wants that. There you go. That's better.
By the way, a lot safer to do our show than WST.
That's the
Why?
Kenny and Rennie look. Let's just leave it there for a little bit. Let's try something new.
What happened on WST, Dave?
What do you mean? Paul was doing the hit and got hit. He got hit and got hit.
Oh, in the car. Yes, that's right. I forgot. He got into the.
Did he actually? When was that?
Yeah, Dave was telling me about that.
Last show, he was doing
like a car hit him as he was parked.
Because he parked. He was doing practice, and then he started going home. But he had he was doing WST that day, and then so he was in his car, and then all of a sudden you see the camera, and then he's just trying to get online with Huss, and then all of a sudden the camera goes flinging, and Huss thinks it's because Paul's mad because he doesn't have a connection, but it's because his car got hit. He got hit while he was parked and stuff like that. So we're a lot safer of a show.
That's right. He's doing it from. Yeah. If somebody comes from behind and hits him, it's on purpose. When he was doing that radio interview, if Jamie Benn came and socked them, we would know it wasn't accidental, like the car incident. But glad that Paul's okay, of course, because you mentioned that to me, and we certainly want Paulie in tip-top shape as he's going to be on the call later tonight for the Jets and the Dallas.
It kind of reminds me, guys, of when our good friend Marty Biron pulled to the side of the road in upstate New York.
Didn't he steal the internet
so he could get a better Wi-Fi connection?
Yes.
He was out of his car though, I believe. I think he actually parked his car.
No,
he
pulled his car over.
Well, he's done 2 hits with us like that. Maybe we shouldn't use the word hits when they're in their cars because that could end up badly. But yeah, I think twice as he did it from maybe more than twice. But one time he was doing deliveries or something like that, not like as an Uber driver or as a DoorDash driver, I should say, but I think he was delivering some stuff, and then he's like, I had to pull over and get better Wi-Fi, so I logged into somebody else's Wi-Fi. Very funny stuff from Marty.
We appreciate that kind of dedication. That's the kind of dedication that makes you a regular guest here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We'll take our final break. We'll come back. More on the Jets and the Dallas Stars. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. The Stars are on the ice. It looks like they're sticking with 11-7. This courtesy Dallas Stars radio analyst Bruce Levine. Time will tell if that's actually the case or not. Much more coverage to come on this Saturday morning.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Optional practice for the Dallas Stars. They're on the ice. Optional morning skate, I guess, is the better way to describe it. The Jets will be on the ice as well in about 45 minutes time. So stay tuned to illegalcurve.com for your pregame report all day long. The coverage ahead of Game 6 between the Jets and the Dallas Stars.
Jets are, yeah, I know you mentioned it, Drew, but it is an optional for the Jets as well.
Exactly. Everything's an optional when it comes to morning skates and practices and everything else this time.
The Illegal Curve hockey show is not optional for us.
That's mandatory. That's mandatory for us. So we look forward to that. And of course,
it's funny because my daughter asked me, she's like she knows we do the post game shows, so she asked me, like, are you doing the post game show after the Jets game tonight? And then she's like, why do you do the Saturday morning show? I'm like, that's a really great question. Dave, Drew, and I have been asking ourselves that for the last 6 days.
What do you mean? We do it. It's an easy answer. We do it so over 500 people have something to do on their Saturday mornings, and then thousands that later will download the show. And
it sounds like it sounds like we need to be auditioning for a new third on for the Saturday morning show. There, Dave.
Connor Rabchak is ready in the wins.
Guys, I'm having an existential crisis.
Well, there's an easy way to fix that. Goodbye, Ginsburg.
There you go. Finally, welcome back, Ginsburg. In any event, yes.
Joking. I love spending every Saturday morning with you guys. Every single Saturday morning until the day I die.
Wow. All right.
Okay.
And I'm planning on living till like 120. So
there we go. I like it.
You guys, he's losing it a little bit, folks.
Spency's upset that I didn't pick him as the replacement for Ezzy.
I tell you what, I mean, the appearance similarities would be uncanny.
I will say those two look similar, as well as that one Jets fan who was wearing. Do you remember the guy who wore the chainmail with the big beard? And I watched it side by side, him and Ezzy. So that would be quite the trio. Actually, we've got those three guys.
He won the $150 gift card from Princess Auto from our buddy Tyler Esquivel of the Jets.
That's true. But by the way, Spency was on the show. I was actually, I don't know why. I went back. I was watching one of our old, because I had the clip on my phone. I was deleting old videos to free up some space. And the best was when we were at Boston Pizza. And I think it was just Drew and I doing the show. And then all of a sudden you see the camera slowly pan. And Spency literally turned our camera. So it was just him holding a beer. And it was like, kind of felt like as he was on the show.
Spency and I have talked about doing like what's it called? Like a
breakaway show?
Like a
spin-off?
A spin-off. That's the word.
That show sounds like it'd be great.
Oh, yeah. That's
but we've talked about it, but we're not sure like if like all the audio equipment would be safe because we're planning on doing it live in a hot tub. So that's one thing that we're
hot thoughts with hot guys.
Yeah. Hey Dave, you want to join the show with us?
No chance.
Alrighty.
Oh, that's what they need. That's what they need. More dudes in a hot tub. Awesome.
Who doesn't want to watch that? In any event, that was quite the digression, and I certainly wasn't the least bit responsible for that one.
That was all on me.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. You take credit for it. From the Jets' perspective, as we're about 10 minutes away from wrapping the Saturday morning show and then getting you set for the
Rob Mahoney's got it the best. Tubbing
with the bros. Yeah, well, there's Bussin' with the Bros, Dave. It's a podcast.
Thank you. I used to watch Barstool. Come on.
Okay.
I'm. You guys know my hot tub story from high school. I'm not going to share it here because I don't think it's appropriate, even for YouTube. But
no, it's not. Don't even mention the word high school hot tub and Ezzy altogether. Nobody wants
Ezzy,
that.
you're still banned from Kelvin for a reason. So let's just move on.
The rashes everywhere.
No. I said no.
I muted him. We're good.
Thank you. We said, who do you want to see step up for the Jets tonight? 10 minutes before we wrap up this broadcast, the Jets are going to be on the ice soon. Who are you looking towards to sort of? I know that you don't necessarily. You think it's going to be a communal effort, Dave, and I said Scheifele earlier as being my guy. So who do you think is going to be sort of is going to be one of those difference makers for the Jets tonight?
It's an easy one. It's the one I think everyone's expecting. It's number 37. It has to be. It's Connor Hellebuck. I mean, he is all the difference. And he is an otherworldly goaltender. He is going to win his third Vezina. He has got as good a chance as a goaltender since Carey Price to win a Hart Trophy. And he is going to have to be the difference maker in this game. And by that, I don't mean he actually doesn't have to be otherworldly, Ezzy, but he has to be his kind of normal self. And I think if that's the case, if Connor Hellebuck provides what he normally does, because that's all the Jets have needed. The Jets haven't needed extraordinary goaltending to win these games. If you look, if they just had replacement level goaltending, they would win some of these games that they're not winning. So they need Connor Hellebuck to be his normal self. And if he is, that puts him in as good a stead to win as they could ask for. So it has to be Connor Hellebuck. He's my guy right now. If I'm pointing one player, and again, I'm the biggest proponent of this, the team game. You win as a team, you lose as a team. And that's true. I mean, look, if Connor Hellebuck plays to his normal standard and the Jets suddenly start giving up chances that they didn't give up all year.
He still needs run support, right, Dave?
Well, I'm not even talking about on the scoring side of things. I'm just talking about from a defensive structural perspective. If the Jets play the way they should, because they've had it, Drew, you mentioned it, 101 games. It's not like this is the 101st game tonight, but for 100 games, preseason, fine, throw those out. So it's 194 games or whatever it is. For 94 regular season games and playoff games, you have played to a structure that for more nights than not have won you. What was their winning percentage? 7 something? Over 7, somewhere in the 700s. So
they won the President's Trophy.
707 was their points percentage.
So, okay, my point is that you were winning games because of the way you played. So again, my individual player is Connor Hellebuck, but of course that necessitates the team to play their structured game in front of him. If they do, and he doesn't, have success, well, then the reason why, in my mind, the Jets are not going to win this game. But if they do, and he does play to his usual level or above, then it's a Jets victory, no question.
Ezzy, do you think the Jets' impressive special teams performance from Game 5, where the penalty kill was at its best that we've seen in this series, shutting down a multitude of Dallas Stars power play opportunities and then contributing 2 goals as well, do you think that is giving the Jets sort of an extra boost entering tonight's Game 6?
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I mean, it only bodes well that your power play was not just producing with the 2 goals, but it looked as elite as it was during the regular season when it was at, I forget what it finished at, 30%. It was around 30%, whatever it was. At one point, it was around 35%. And yeah, no, I mean, it's key for the Jets for this time of year. You want your specialty teams to be clicking. The penalty kill has been better as of late. Going back to what Dave said, I mean, it sounds obvious that Connor Hellebuck has to outplay Jake Ottinger, but I think it's even more pronounced because of his struggles on the road during these playoffs, and then we talked about it against Colorado and against Vegas. So obviously, Hellebuck has to be great. Hopefully, he can have one of his low-scoring games. I'm looking at that top line, though, too, guys. Like, I think Scheifele and Connor have led the team, not just in these playoffs, but throughout the regular season. Gabe Vilardi, I still don't think Gabe Vilardi is at 100%. Like, I still haven't seen I haven't seen regular season Gabe Vilardi in the playoffs. He's obviously struggling, guys. So for me, like, that top line, we expect it to be intact. Drew asked us whether or not we thought maybe Iafallo jumps up to that top line. It can happen.
I'm not so sure that it won't be Iafallo up there. I really am not so sure about that. I think you can always, change things up if you need to midway through the game, but it's hard to flip it where Iafallo becomes the guy up front, because I think it's probably too late at that point in time. I wouldn't be surprised if you see the same forward lines that you saw in Game 4 rather than Game 5, just because of how the Jets played in Game 4 and the defensive impact that it has, I think, up and down the lineup.
Yeah, well, I mean, your point is well taken, though, Drew, about the Rantanen line, the Finn line. That Pete DeBoer is going to want the Finn line up against the Scheifele line, whereas Scott Arniel is going to want the Lowry line up against that line. Because Mikko Rantanen gets double shift, we expect there's a good chance that the Dallas Stars are going to go with 11 and 7. So that means that if you go with, let's say, Lowry, Ehlers, Vilardi, that was the line from Game 4. Scott Arniel made that adjustment. Maybe then now you're able to get Lowry, Ehlers, Vilardi up against the Rantanen, Granlund, Hintz line, right? So it can happen. Look, I mean,
And I think you with Iafallo being that, then you got Iafallo, that defensive responsibility that he brings to the table with Scheifele and Connor. And again, these are guys who played together. So it's not like they don't know each other. It's not like this is coming out of nowhere. They were aligned together for a lot of these playoffs until Velarde got back in the lineup. So again, I like a lot about that idea. I know it sounds wild because of how great Velarde, Scheifele, and Connor were all season long. But you're going up against a special beast in Mikko Rantanen. So I think that you almost have to some extent, not abandon the playbook, but you have to alter the playbook when you're going up against a guy of his talents. Just like I think it would be similar if you're going up against a McDavid and a Draisaitl, guys who are otherworldly, who are world beaters, who can singularly win you a game strictly by their performance. I think the Jets need to maybe throw a wrinkle at them, and I think that wrinkle would be an adjustment of the forward lines back to what you saw in Game 4.
Yeah,
go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just going to say it is a really good. It's an interesting conundrum because the Jets had such a fantastic Game 5, and you look at it and you think, well, wouldn't you be loath to change a winning formula? But that was the winning formula at home, and it wasn't the winning formula in Game 3 on the road. Mm-hmm. Now, you say, well, we're better than we were in Game 3 because we just pitched that shutout. But again, that to me is why it's such a curious case of like, you had really good success in Game 4. Again, you didn't win the game, and you needed Connor Hellebuck to be better than he was. And again, like, and we don't need to go back and revisit the plays, but remember, like, again, I think there's saves he needs to make, but there's the Nino Niederreiter bad pass that sets up Rantanen to set Granlund away for the second goal. Brandon Tanev missing the bump in the neutral zone on Granlund in the first place. So there are little breakdowns that happen that lead to these opportunities that the Jets have to be collectively better. But again, it comes to me, it always comes back to the goaltending. So, Drew, I think it's going to be really fascinating. We're probably not going to get any insight from Scott Arniel other than what he adopted from Rick Bowness in more than a we'll see when he held his media availability around 12:30 as he. And one of actually, it was pretty funny though with Arniel yesterday at the airport because he was asked about
I thought we didn't have an airport, Dave.
We do. We have a small little one.
It's a regional airport. It doesn't fly. It just flies.
You fly to
from Winnipeg to Saskatoon and back. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Brandon as well. But no, I mean, one of the things he talked about, he kind of joking because I think he was asked about the road woes. And he said, "Oh, that's Rick Bowness's fault. This is a new thing for me. It's not really something I'm dealing with." And of course, he was kidding. But again, like I said, I think this team is going to be dialed in. They're going to be ready. They know like there's a lot on the line for them. And look, bottom line is, and one thing we tend to focus on because it's a Jets focused show is how good the Winnipeg Jets are and they've been. But also we know how good the Dallas Stars are. So I think it's going to be a clash. It's going to be a fantastic game. It's unfortunate Drew can't join us, but I have a feeling.
I was going to ask. That was going to be my question.
This is not a minute guarantee, but I have a feeling that we will be back. There's circumstances which I'll get into on Monday. Why, if the Jets play Game 7, it'll be very fortuitous or whatever it's going to be. But we'll talk about that on Monday. But I have a feeling that there will be a Game 7 to discuss on Monday. That's where I'll leave it for now. If I'm wrong, well, we'll talk about it, and we'll talk about a lot of other things.
Does Connor Rabchak think there's going to be a Game 7 though?
Well, we know he does because he said he'd see it. Remember, he said he'd see us back on Monday and he'll be joining us because he is the elimination specialist when he does appear on the Illegal Curve pregame show at City Place. And the Jets have gone on to win those elimination games. So we'll have him again for Game 7 like we did against St. Louis, but we have to focus right now on Game 6.
I hope you're right, Dave, because a second Game 7 would just be absolutely epic.
Yeah. It would be electric. And, and there's something be pretty fitting. I believe Game 1 of the Jets Blues series was Easter Monday. So, a holiday for some. There'd be something sort of symmetrical about a Game 7 of the second round being on the holiday Monday, the Victoria Day Monday. Both the first round starts on a holiday Monday and then the second round ends on a holiday Monday. There's some symmetry there that I like as well.
Did you know that Victoria Day was named after Queen Victoria?
Insight like that is why you show up.
Well, some people, I don't know, maybe some people aren't sure who
Wait, you were being
Victoria
serious?
is.
Was that a serious comment?
Wait, I didn't think you were actually
Guys,
serious.
if that was a serious comment,
More importantly,
then we're in a lot of
Ezzy,
trouble.
I want Ezzy to get his prediction, but I'm going to ask the chat because this is how we're going to sign off. Let's get the chat's input. Maybe I'll do a quick poll while Ezzy's getting his, and then Drew will go to Ezzy, and then Drew will come back. So I'll do a
hope the
quick
Jets
poll.
win. I mean, I hope the Jets win. I'm going to put it that way. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm going to predict the Jets win as well.
You know, the Leafs can do it. Anything the Leafs can do, the Jets can do better. That's how I started this morning's show. And I think that there's no reason why this Winnipeg Jets team, given how they've played, if they were down 3-2 to St. Louis and heading on the road in round one, I don't think they had a chance. But given the way they've played in this series, even though they're down 3-2, at home or on the road, these games have been a lot more competitive, and the Jets' performance has been a lot better through the first 5 games of this series. I'll be surprised if the Jets don't come out and have one of the best performances they've had all season long tonight. I think that they know the recipe for success. They started creating that recipe in game 4. They continued it certainly in game 5. I think they continue it tonight in game 6. They're going to do it for my parents, right? 50th anniversary.
sure.
They're going to do it
Absolutely.
for my folks. It's the only way possible. So we will see if that is indeed the case or not. Dave, do you have that poll set up? I don't know if it's
I tried to do it, but stupid YouTube isn't working. So no poll, but just
poll.
you know what? We'll just answer in the chat, and then actually what you could do, which is
don't
again,
make it too more complicated.
I'm not making it
We'll just do mail-in ballots. Let us know.
Drew,
let
I'm
us
talking-
know who you think will win Game 6,
Hey.
and then just mail it to Dave@illegalcurve.com.
There you go. But I was going to say, Drew, I'm shocked that, you have more time to spend this morning because you're not going to have the airtime. Maybe you'll join us remotely. Maybe we'll throw you on the cam. We'll get you on for a period. We can bring Tanis and
If I'm
Sheldon
calling
in.
it right now, I won't be. If the Jets win, I wouldn't be surprised if Drew pops in for a little late night post game show.
Look, if it goes 3 overtimes, the party will be over and I'll be home by then. So if it goes long enough, it goes late enough tonight, I'll be home in time to join the post game.
I do. So everyone, what I was going to say is everyone can get in your vote here in the chat. And then, of course, if you don't get it into the chat because the show is no longer live,
Dave is currently sending out carrier pigeons.
Holy
to accept
Dinah. The point I'm making is you can put in your comment on the show afterwards on our YouTube channel, and we always try and get to those. And we should mention, because Ezzy, there was a game 5 in Winnipeg on Thursday night, which we of course detailed in depth after that game. But of course we missed that Jacob Julian and the London Knights defeated Colby Barlow. And
no, we didn't. You said this.
No, we didn't. We did not. No, we did not discuss it because we didn't get a chance. Maybe I discussed it in quickly, but the reason why I want to mention it,
we didn't discuss it because nobody cares.
No, we absolutely discussed it at 1 a.m. We discussed it after game 5's post game show.
But maybe we did, maybe we didn't. But I'm pretty sure we did. But the point I was going to make, because I didn't get a chance to break it down, I just want to mention this out quick. So Julian finished the playoffs 19 points, 17 games. He went from regular season 0.83 points per game to 1.12. But Colby Barlow, folks, had a very disappointing regular season, but he finished with 14 goals, 19 assists, 33 points in 21 games, third in playoff scoring in the OHL, and his regular season points production to the playoffs jumped from 0.98 to 1.57. So just a little prospects updates. Jacob Julian now going off to the Memorial Cup in, I believe, Rimouski, so there'll be more updates because I feel there'll be more post-game shows. That's what's up.
There you go. Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg. Big thank you to our sponsors. Play Now, the title sponsor. Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club. Holt Dental. Boston Pizza. City Place. Will we be back on Monday at City Place? Time will tell. Seagram's in the 2025 Rady JCC Sports Dinner. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Remember, day-long coverage ahead of Game 6 on illegalcurve.com. Also on our YouTube channel, so keep it locked to us. And then after the game tonight, whenever that game ends, if it's 9:45, if it's 10 o'clock, if it's 11 o'clock, whenever that game ends, you are going to have the Illegal Curve post-game show, either getting you set for a Game 7 or looking back at the end of the Winnipeg Jets season. Time will tell on that front. If you haven't already done so, folks, smash the like button, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the channel. leave us feedback here, there, and everywhere, and also leave comments on the videos. It helps with the algorithm. Lord knows how the algorithm works, but I'm told if you leave comments, it helps us. So thank you for doing so. We'll see everybody later tonight. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Big thanks to Mike Heika. Big thanks to Paul Edmonds. For Dave Manouk, for Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mindell. If it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Enjoy Game 6 later tonight, everyone, and we'll see you for the post-game show.